Schedule a free design consultation, and the more you buy, the more you'll save on blinds, shades, shutters, and more from Budget Blinds. Visit budgetblinds.com today.
We start with the ACAC Provincial Futsal Championships. Both the Lakeland Rustlers men's and women's team were in the finals today. Women taking on the Rattlers from Medicine Hat second half and already down 3-0, having a tough time controlling the ball. Then Katie Letwiniuk finds the back of the net as the Rustlers get shut out in their home gym, but hey, they still earn some silver medals. Now the men, who settled for third in soccer earlier this year, were hoping to put a silver lining on that with a win for a championship today, taking on the Keanu Huskies, but Keanu's 19 boots it past Alex Campos to give them an early lead. Now second half, and Keanu leading 3-2. The Huskies get their goaltender out too far, and Lakeland ties it. Crowd going wild there. But that was the closest the Rustlers get to gold, as Keanu, with a beauty sliding kick, get the lead and take it for a final of 5-3. Now, tons of local playoff hockey happening in the border city. The midget AAA Baker Hughes Bobcats moved on to round 2 of playoffs on Friday night after a thrilling Game 5 victory. They were hoping to draw first blood in Game 1 in their series against the CAC Greg Distributors this afternoon. But the Bobcats can't manage to even score once as they fall 4-0. Now, keep in mind that the Distributors were number 1 in the North, so a very solid team, but not the outcome the Baby Cats were hoping for. They'll get another crack at CAC on Tuesday night at the Civic. In the female midget playoffs, the PWM Steelers are hosting the Calgary Fire. The Calgary Crew took Game 1 by a score of 3-0, and Game 2 went down this afternoon. Keep in mind, this is a strong team. They came second at this year's Max Midget Invitational. In the first period, the visitors get some good shots off, but Camille Scherger standing on her head. Then Calgary with a chance, but backdoor they don't connect. Still scoreless. Calgary get a power play in the corner. Now, Brooke Wheatsall, she eventually nets it. Madison Cole and Callie Hall get the assists. However, PWM couldn't do it, and Fire found a spark and fell 2-1. PWM now heads to Calgary next weekend in the best of 5 series. Last night, the Junior B Bandits needed a win against the Wainwright Bisons to stay alive in the postseason. Bisons had scored 7 goals in each of their previous 3 meetings. Things tied in the second, and Ambrose Furcus flips it over Scott Yanada to give the Bisons a 3-2 lead. In the third, Bandits not wanting to go out 4-0 in the series. They pull their goalie, Anthony Rainier, and racing Jory Hoffman, but he saves it. But the Bandits can't get an offensive play under control, as Tian Anderson eventually gets an empty netter, and Wainwright takes the game and wins the series. Today, the Brier wraps up, and while we often follow local athletes who go on to compete in major competitions such as the Scotties and the Brier, we're going to look at a broadcaster who started in Lloydminster way back in 1998. He had dreams of being on TSN, but then had to put everything on hold to have the biggest battle of his life, his fight with cancer.
Perseverance, paradigm, and prosperity. The theme behind
From
the
here
1998 version of the Lloydminster
to here.
We are glad you're watching Sports Center. Come on inside. I'm Brian. That is Tessa. And
Bryan Mudryk might seem like a staple of Canadian TV sports coverage, but the TSN host had humble beginnings in Lloydminster.
It was 1999 that I went to CKSA. I had a practicum, and at NAIT in Edmonton, you have to do 4 months. Considering I was from a town of 850 people, I'm like, wow, Lloydminster's so big.
After only 1 month, Mudryk was hired as a full-time reporter.
I had to drive a pretty slick news van. It was a minivan. It was high-end. I think I did a square dancing story.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I've donned a square dance.
We were all young kids learning at that time, and it was really cool because we were all just trying to learn the craft and become better at what we were doing.
3 years previously, he had been diagnosed with a form of cancer, Hodgkin's lymphoma, and he beat it. But then, a phone call changed everything.
It was about 5 days before Christmas in 1999, and I was at CKSA, and I got a phone call right before the 6 o'clock show. I was the weather guy at that point, and the doctor said that my cancer had come back, and you have to go back to the hospital.
I still very vividly remember that day and him getting that phone call, because I will never forget the look on his face, knowing that it was something terrible, something that had been said to him on the other end of the phone.
Obviously, I had to leave work, and I went back to the cross, and I did a stem cell transplant, which was very intensive chemotherapy. I was in isolation for 42 days, and it was tough, one of the darkest times of my life.
He was just a shell of himself sitting in the bed, and I remember at that point, it was hard to look at.
My mom would play my little Newcap tapes of me doing the weather and the agriculture, which was hilarious, to just remind myself what I actually looked like and who I was, instead of this kid in the bed who, 210 pounds and 139 pounds when I left the hospital. I remember going back to Lloyd, and I finished my treatment, and I went on the air still with a bald little head because I wanted to get back to work because it kept my mind off everything else.
Now, if you've ever been to the Lloydminster Golf and Curling Club, you'll notice that Mudryk's name is on this curling banner. But what you might not know is that the sport played a role in his battle against cancer.
When I got the phone call and my cancer had come back, I actually had played on a junior curling team. I was still young enough to curl junior, and so I curled out of the Lloydminster Curling Club, and we qualified for provincials. Our coach in Lloydminster, our curling coach, was Tom McPhee. And I run into Tom all the time now at events like this. He's one of the officials on the ice.
Yeah, I enjoyed watching him on CKSA, and now that he's a big TSN star, I see him lots on TSN, and lots of people I tell, of my friends back home, I say, hey, I coached that guy in juniors,
Mudryk won the battle with cancer and eventually reached his dream of working for TSN. One of his duties is calling the Brier, a bonspiel he once drew inspiration from.
When I was in the hospital sick in '99, it was the '99 Brier was in Edmonton. And I watched 3 draws a day, takes your mind off the chemo and your sickness. So I remember watching that Brier, and it kind of helped get me through and take my mind off things. For me, 2013, full circle, I got to call my first Brier in Edmonton in the booth. So that for me was very surreal. The cancer experience taught me that you're not promised tomorrow, that you have to fight for everything that you got. And in the competitive broadcasting industry, I think it really helped push me to always be my best and to not let anyone take anything away from me.
I'm reporter Bryan Mudryk.
And I think the most important lesson I learned, it makes you realize where I came from and how hard I had to work to get here. And I really respect where I am now, and I appreciate being here a lot more.